Welcome back to the show. I'm so excited for my conversation today. So would love to have you, Alicia, start off by telling us who you are and what you do in the events industry.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I've been a big fan of this, a big admirer of this show for quite some time. You're like my North Star, so I'm very excited to be on the show. My name is Alicia Disantis. I am owner of a 38th and Kip studio, which is a branding and design studio currently based in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. And I've been doing, in some capacity, event marketing, event design for 15 years, primarily in the B2B space, fintech, SaaS, technology. So very much business heavy focus.
Yeah. And it's funny, before we hopped on, I was thinking about all the things we were going to talk about. And at first, I was really thinking about the in person experience. But I think
Right.
that there's so much more. Like, design actually touches so much of the event process. So I'm excited for you to tell us all the great ways that we can improve our designs, that we can save time probably by getting it right the first time. I know recently worked an event where we had a very big issue on a print thing that we printed a lot of, and they all had to go in the garbage, which was very
Oh
unfortunate.
man. Yeah.
So yeah, like design, I think people probably don't think of as being so connected to events, but it really touches everything. So
Yeah.
when someone's designing like an event, and maybe it's a standalone event so that it's not associated with a brand, or maybe it's like you mentioned, like an event marketing kind of play, what are some branding event guidelines that people really should keep in mind when they're developing the look and feel of their event design?
Yeah. Yeah. So my lens is primarily around trade shows. So trade shows as an extension of events. It's oftentimes what I'm finding, especially in the B2B space, that there's specific events that happen within the trade show. There's like a gala at the end, and there's some event. And like I was at one recently where the final party was at an amusement park. And I remember
Hmm.
I texted you and said how great that was. Or I think I posted on LinkedIn. And so you got to really think about it. So when you think about events, and I come from the perspective, from the lens more of trade shows, is really thinking about all the different pieces that go into your event. So whether it's like a training event, like a round table type event where you're specifically there to learn about a specific product or service, or if it's more of a selling type of event like a trade show where you have sales folks on the floor, or if it's more of a party, or if it's more of some like launch, like a brand launch. There's all these things you have to really think about. Firstly, is your audience and how you want them to perceive you. So that's going to like trickle down into all of your design. So is it, and an example would be, is it's fun? Do you want it to be a fun feel? Is it more serious? Are we doing some kind of, cancer 5K or something? Like you really want to make sure that you're not tone deaf. So having really auditing your collateral and your what photos you're using and like the overall vibe of your presence there is really important because you don't want this disconnect.
Yeah, the disconnect is true. And I also think that someone posted, yeah, I don't know if it was yesterday or the other day on LinkedIn, that they changed their headshot. It was like they got a new headshot, and they're like, it's interesting how quickly a headshot can seem out of date.
Yeah.
Even if you look kind of the same, like there's just elements that look older in a headshot. And I'm sure it's very similar with event branding, right? Like
Yep.
I can look at something and say, oh, that's so 2015, right? Like, which feels like, oh, we just did that. And it's like,
Yep.
no, actually, like those stock images look really dated. And I think I've told you about when I used to do a lot of like event invite design. I had a very limited access to stock photos, and there was like one bearded man in every networking photo. Like he was like every networking photo is like, oh,
Yes. Yes.
there's the guy. And if someone used that photo today, I'd be like, oh, you're using the 2015 special of guy at a networking event. Like he's in a suit, but he's got
Oh,
a beard, so he looks
I
approachable,
feel that.
right? So
I feel
I'm
that.
I'm sure most people don't realize how quickly their event collateral can feel really dated.
Yes. Yes, and that's something I'm very passionate about. I've written at length about how to do an audit, even for non-creative folks. Let's say you're an entrepreneur or small business owner, how to do an audit of your stock photography and specific things to look for. And I can go into them if you'd like.
I would love to, and I'd
Okay.
love to know.
Okay. Okay. So I was very passionate about this. The first one that most people do not realize is the vast majority of stock photography comes from Eastern Europe and Russia. That's why you always see very thin, blonde women with Eastern European, Slavic look to them, traditionally very beautiful in most of our stock photography. So that's something you really need to consider is again going back to your audience, right? Do these people represent what your audience really looks like? And the answer is 99% of the time, no, unless you're at an Eastern European model convention. The other thing to really consider with your services is, let's say, so I work a lot in finance. One of my biggest pet peeves is your new mortgages. Mortgage rates have dropped. Get your home of your dreams. And it's some mansion with like a family and a little kid. Like there's a disconnect there. You're making people feel bad because they're not going to be buying a mansion. They'll be first time homeowners. Their home might look like a piece of crap. And so you're choosing photography that is making your audience feel bad. Same with like a brand new car, right? Oh, get your car loan. These are not real representations of what your audience wants. When your audience feels bad, what do? They don't buy from you, right? When they feel like it's unachievable. The other thing is technology. You have got to audit that because laptops, like if laptop more than like 3 years old, phones, you can get away with it more now because phones haven't really changed much in size. But I still see large companies using stock photography with like clunky laptops. It's just like, what is this saying about your brand? And the last one I would say, which is huge, is style. So you'll see a lot of older stock photos where women are in pencil skirts and heels, and like really no one wears that stuff anymore. Like even very executive level women don't really wear like suits, like pencil skirt suits anymore. So really considering what they're wearing, their dress, their shoes is another big one, like men's dress shoes is a dead giveaway. And these things may seem really very like micromanaging, very tedious, but they really do have an impact on how your brand is perceived. And
Yeah.
if you're seen as old and outdated, or you simply don't have the oversight to be getting new photography, it makes you seem lazy. And all of those things kind of they worm into the audience's brain.
Yeah, it's interesting. I used to work at a home care company, or sorry, a home care technology company. So we were selling into the home care industry, and it was a big deal that we had to be very careful with the stock images we used because it was generally very hard to find home care versus health
Mm,
care. And
yeah,
someone who's not in the industry probably wouldn't think twice about it. Would be like, "Oh yeah, that's a person taking care of another person. Like, what's the big deal?" But it is a big deal because the roles are very different and the tasks are very different, and so it just also makes you look out of touch, like, kinda like the mansion for your first time home buyer. It's like, "Okay, well,
yep,
is that really your first time home?" Like, maybe for some, but for the
yeah,
majority of people, right? And like you said, it's going to give you away. It's gonna signal something, and I also think too, like, I know a lot of entrepreneurs use events to, sell programs or as part of their coaching services. And I see so often their branding that doesn't align to what I'm expecting from the event or what their brand does. And so then now as a consumer, I'm confused. I'm like, well, is this really an event for me? Is this not an event for me? Like, and if your attendee is confused, they're not coming, right? Like nobody, like, people need to be a hell yes of like, I see myself in that room. Cause if they don't, they're gonna just skip past it.
right, exactly. And the expectation component is more important than ever now. And it makes me think of something I've talked about at length also. And even I had a focus on this with one of the courses I created for Mary Baldwin University around the big faux pas with the tech event that didn't have enough women. And so they used an AI generated woman as a speaker and then got called out on it. And then everyone backed out. And this was like, what, 2023, I think? But it's
Yeah.
like, first of all, who the hell do you think you are that you can just do that and no one's going to notice? And like, it's just so insulting to your attendees
Yeah.
who are paying a lot of money. It's insulting to women. It's insulting to pretty much every human involved. But I'm seeing it more and more, like people like they'll use AI like, oh, well, maybe the attendance at this event wasn't that great. Let's just make it look like there's more people using
Right.
AI
Yeah.
or like some random thing to alter reality. And the risk versus return on that is
Yeah.
so like astronomically high in terms of risk. Like just do not do it. Do not do
Yeah.
it. Okay? Like do not use AI to bolster the design of your event.
Yeah, and I think it's also that it's counterproductive, right? Like, are you using AI to promote an in-person experience? And why are you? And I see people do it with like creating short videos of people, and I'm like, but that person is actually going to be speaking at the event, and so I want to see them speaking in the video, not an AI representation of them speaking. Because what am I going to the event for, right? Like, you like AI has its use in events, but it is not in creating the experience that you want and driving that kind of attendant. Like it's so counterproductive. Like if you want your speakers to do a video to promote the event, then get that in the contract and schedule it and figure out how to do it properly instead of
So one of the other things that I see, and this is even with really big companies, is they don't use photography that can scale to the size of their banners or like their trade show booth or like
mm,
any sort of, large scale type of backdrops. And it's so bad. Like it really makes you look like an amateur. And
yeah,
I know a lot of non-design folks, oh yeah, whatever. It looks fine. But especially now, like 20 years ago, you may have been able to get away with it. But now we are so programmed to be used to really high quality photos on our social media platforms. Like things need to look polished to some level because we're very much surrounded by media all the time when before we weren't as much.
yeah. And it's funny you mentioned the like sizing and scaling because I remember I did these postcards once for an event. This was a few years ago, and it was so last minute and no one would approve that. It was like a whole thing. And so finally I ended up printing them like very last minute. The only place I could print them that quickly was Staples. But Staples is not designed to do cuts on the bleeds. And so it had this border around it, but then it was also very small. And then we got on site and everyone's like, well, these don't look great. I'm like, well, yeah, but you wanted postcards and here are the postcards, right? Like there's so many things that we just rush through and then are shocked when we get on site and it's not the way we expected or the font is too small or anything
Yep.
like that. It's like, well, because you rushed it and then we had to rush print it and the only options on a Sunday was Staples and so this is what you get. Like you can't have it both ways, right?
Yeah, and I think it really does come down to the general concept that design is easy, that there's
Right.
been studies, so many studies on this, that design, marketing, the arts are considered easier than other areas of business. And when in fact it's well, of course I'm biased, but it takes so much multidisciplinary understanding and all these different very nuanced components to make it work that people just think they can throw some things together and it's gonna come out looking great. And then when it doesn't, they have shocked Pokemon face, the shocked Pikachu face, because then they're like, oh my God, maybe this is hard. Maybe I can't just pull up Canva and spend 10
Right.
minutes on something and then suddenly I'm gonna, grow my revenue by 300% just from this one event because I made a postcard.
Yeah.
Like, I know that sounds very, very cynical, but you really need to consider investing in people like you and me to help with these things. I mean, you wouldn't do your electrical for your event, right? You wouldn't go and
Yeah.
manage all of that. Why would you go and try to manage all of the design and then wonder why you're not looking as polished and getting as much attention as competitors in the space, especially if it is a competitor event. If you got, you know,
Right.
aisles and aisles of booths all competing, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, that is a big consideration of how do you differentiate yourself graphically in a crowded space, right? Like it is one thing when it's your own event, and I've worked on both sides, right? The trade show side and the owned event side. And then an owned event, like you can brand whatever you want. You can have your branding everywhere. You can really take over a space. But at a trade show, you're really limited to whatever square footage you've purchased and you also don't always have the best you don't always have the choice of where that is, what it's next to, and sometimes there's competitors, but sometimes it's like, oh, you're just also beside the giant, like, I don't know, chicken sign for the restaurant that's on site, right? Like, there's all these things that you have to, not speaking from experience or anything, but right, like, there's
It
like,
reminds me of
how
that
do you
Seinfeld
kind of,
episode where the
yeah,
neon chicken sign opens in Kramer's
yes.
apartment and he can't sleep.
Yes, yes, I have been that, but in a booth. But, like, so how do you design your trade show booth? And if someone is like, "Okay, we know," and I know, from working in SaaS, like, so many startups are like, "Okay, we have to get to events," and then they don't really know kind of what their brand presence should be like. How do they stand out? The worst thing I ever see is when someone brings a pop-up banner with like 27 messages,
Yes.
3 QR codes. I'm like, nobody is reading this, right? So how do you advise clients when they're like, okay, we're designing a booth or we're designing assets, and even if it's a small booth, sometimes it's just a tabletop and maybe a 10 by 10 up to the 20 by 30s and island booths. Like, what are you advising them when you're building that out?
Yeah, it's really tricky. Some booths are only 6 feet.
Yeah.
I was at an event in San Diego where the booth was 6 feet, and there were 4 people. 4 people had come to the event, and we were like, we and one of the people was 6'7", 6'7", and it was like, "Okay, we cannot all fit in this booth." So, the first thing I would say, and you touched on this specifically, is you need to be so intentional about what is on your banner. First of all,
Yeah.
no one is reading the bottom. If it's, like,
Yeah.
below your waist, no one is reading that. Like, it's dead space. Just put some nice gradient there or something that just looks pretty. The second thing is you need to really, really understand how can you talk about your message in like 6 words or less so you have a nice strong headline. And that headline might not always be everything you do. It might actually not have to do with
Right.
anything you do. It might be a pain point or a
Yeah.
benefit, right? That takes a lot of work, and that's a lot of brand strategy involved in that, in boiling down what you want to say you do in a few words. I get it. That's very challenging. But if you can do it, you really stand out because then you have a nice big message. If you look at any of Apple for small business, their website, a lot of their marketing is very, very good for that. It's like 4 words and a really nice
Yeah.
graphic. The other thing is bullet points. So I'm going down, right? I'm starting at the top and going down.
Yeah.
You don't wanna have 20 services. You don't
Yeah.
wanna have 5 services. I would leave it at 3 if you're gonna have any services, because so many folks are scared that this is like their one and only opportunity, that that person's gonna
Yes.
see that banner, and if they don't fall in love with it, "Oh my god, then the sale's lost." Like, there's so many other components of it. You want them to be questioning in a way, right? You want them to be reflecting on some kind of introspection around a pain point or motivation. Yeah, I really do struggle with that. Or, yeah, this company really isn't doing that for me right now. Or, yeah, this is something I've been putting off that, yeah, the cost of my accountant, like, yeah, that has kind of been upsetting me lately, how much it's been going up in price. Like, and then you can work those into a message. But I would really, really narrow it down. I promise you, you are not losing sales. There's scientific research on how many things the human eye can process at once. There's
Right.
science about this. And if you put too much on your collateral at an event, they're just going to get overwhelmed and completely check out.
Yeah. I think also what I would tell them is no one's buying because of your banner.
Right.
And I've had this one time I was working on it was a small trade show and I wasn't on site, but we had sent swag and a bunch of stuff ahead of time. And something happened at the venue that half of the sponsors' stuff got locked in a room that no one had a key for. Right. Where people are like, events are so easy. Right. Like the problems I didn't even know I needed to worry about. But anyway, so the swag ended up locked in there. It took them hours to get it out. And the sales reps are freaking out at me. And I said to them, I'm like, respectfully, like, yes, I want to have swag at the booth. Yes, we spend a lot of time selecting the swag. Yes, swag is important. Da, 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 da. But also, you're selling thousands of dollars worth of software in a single transaction. Do you think that's going to be because of the piece of swag that you got? Right? Like, That's just the enticing them to the booth, and I would say the banner is the same thing. Like, no one is looking at a banner, especially in B2B marketing, and thinking, "I've read this banner, and this banner was so great that I'm ready to sign a $50,000 contract on software," without
Right,
talking to a person, without understanding. Like, the banner is the attraction. The banner is your moment to stop
right.
the person and say, "Hey," they wanna you want them to see themselves in the, like you said, the pain point
Yep,
or the benefit of like, "Yeah, I have been meaning to talk to someone new about accounting," and, like,
yep.
it's what you're trying to get them to slow down, and if there's too much happening on the banner, they're not slowing down. They're just walking right past you, right? You want them to slow down and say, "Oh, that is me," and, like, take that moment that you're able to come in with the introduction of, "Hey, like, would love to talk to you about what we're doing," right? So, it's so funny that, especially in B2B, of like, it's cramming everything on these postcard and cramming everything.
I
Like,
know.
do you think people wanna carry around dozens of postcards all day and
Right.
booklets and, like, right? Like, that they're all gonna throw out before they get to the parking lot? Like, these are not the things that move the needle. It's the messaging that gets them quickly,
Mm,
that brings them into the conversation, that will likely continue to multiple conversations, especially in B2B. You're not selling anything in the booth. That is
right.
just the beginning of the conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Another thing I would suggest for getting people just at the booth or lingering or talking with you is having really nice swag. Like swag
Yeah.
and we've talked about this. Swag that is different, that is quality. It doesn't have to be, $50 a piece, but and I give props to my partner at Gemini Data Analytics. She pushed for socks. She's like, "People love socks. We should get custom branded socks."
Two
I'm
love
like,
socks.
"No, no one want." No. I was like, "No, no, no." She's like, "Alicia, I really think we should do this." And damn it, she was right. We got custom branded socks with our designs on them. Like we have used this at Gemini, it's the right triangle design, and they're all these different colors, so they overlap. And those socks sold out. I mean, we had people. I think they were
Yeah.
$10 a pair. People just lining up to get them. Like, "Oh, can I bring these back to the data analyst? He would love this." And, like, other people just have the koozies, the foam koozies or some,
Yeah.
like, keychain, and it's like, this may be a hot take, but if you're not gonna invest in quality or unique swag, then don't have any swag. Just have candy
Yeah.
or bags of
Yep.
popcorn or something. Just don't even do it
Yep.
because it doesn't do
You're
anything
better
for you.
off getting, like, cookies with your logo on them that
Exactly.
people are like, "Oh, like, I'm gonna grab this snack," or, like, popcorn bags with your logo on them,
Yes.
like, I know Garrett's will do that, I've done that
Yes.
for events, like,
Oh, that's another.
I'd rather do that
Yeah. Yeah, that
than
that reminds
try.
me. That reminds me, so my partner's launching his own business, and we did an event together last month, and it was last minute. We just found out there was a slot, and he baked homemade mulberry pound cake, and that was the swag
Right.
with his I helped him make the label, and people were just like, "Oh my god, you have, like, homemade baked goods as swag?" And it's like,
Yeah.
even something like that, like food, like, even, like, homemade food can be way more valuable than a USB, like,
Yeah.
what are those, dongle
And
or
I
something.
also and it's funny because socks are very controversial, like, some people hate them, and I'm like, "I don't know, they seem to go pretty quickly at my shows," and I also say and this might be, like, people will think this is a waste of money, but stuff for kids. Like, if you get, like, a funny little squishy toy that aligns to your brand or, like, the fidget spinner or the stuffy because people are, like, leaving home to go to this event and they're so excited to be able to bring their kid back something that okay they're not going to keep using it but it's okay because the kid's going to use it they're going to have that brand connection of like oh my kid loved that little teddy bear or whatever it is that it just sticks in their brain and you've given them like a moment. I know I did an event a while ago where we had people could bring home succulents, and it was a
Ah,
gal like
interesting.
a gala event. Yeah, like, it was an evening event, and it was actually like a donate we were donating one, and you got to take one home. But what was interesting is that people were on FaceTime at, like, 8 p.m. There were multiple people in the booth on the FaceTime with their kids to be like, "Do you like this one? Is this one more like, do you like the purple of this one, or do you like the black sand?"
Oh.
Because 'Cause they're calling for, like, "Oh, the kids are going to bed while I'm at the
Mhm.
gala, I'm gonna FaceTime and say goodnight." And the kids are, like, they're spending time in the booth, it's the brand like, again, they're not gonna buy something because of the succulent, but you're connect creating this positive experience around your brand.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I've not done anything with swag for children, but I do see there is one vendor that I run come across often, and they're like a Hawaiian theme, and so they have these stuffed
Yeah.
turtles. And there was
Mhm.
another vendor that had the Minecraft swords, but then there were like people walking
Okay.
around with the Minecraft, like the big Minecraft
Sure.
swords, and I'm just like, I
Yeah.
don't know, it kind of created a fun element to a
Yes.
show that's traditionally a lot of executives and stuff like that.
Right, and I talked about this in a recent episode more about experience, but people wanna have fun, like, people
Yeah,
wanna do silly things, like, I did airbrush trucker hats at an event once, and people, like, stood in line for them, like, you give something
yeah,
fun, something unique, like, and they're they're standing in line for 15 minutes waiting, and so you're chatting with them in line, right? People get so focused on, "Oh, we have to have these sale we have to have all these metrics," and it's like, yes, like, you wanna be measuring the ROI, but brand is important, and also you're building those connections that are gonna, like, you should be tracking who's in your booth, waiting for their hat, but, like,
right.
how does that kinda follow-up happen, and how does that all work, right?
Right, absolutely. And, ROI is a subject for another conversation. But one of the things that I've been doing to help with ROI with shows is to conduct primary source research while at the show. So then you can take that information and turn it into some kind of asset that you can share with the industry. So I'm currently working on something right now where I had a 3-question survey and I just went around to people at the show and gave them a $10 Starbucks gift card and asked them
Mm,
if they take the survey, and now I have what would normally be very difficult. I have a collection of primary source information of qualitative and quantitative
sure.
research that I'm going to use to write a white paper. And so that's something that traditionally would have costed thousands of dollars to conduct that and
Yeah,
do that outside of the event. So if you have an extra person or if you have time on your hands, that's a really great way to both, get more bang for your buck, talk to people who normally wouldn't even talk to you, and 3, build some rapport and get them thinking, "Oh, this person's a thought leader. They kinda know what they're doing," they're conducting
right.
research and asking me. It makes them feel good because their opinion, right? Everyone wants to feel like their opinion's important, and
Yes.
it's something that I will continue to do because I think it's been really great. Have you talked to
Yeah,
anyone else on your
and
show that
it's
does research at events? Primary source research?
not research. I have seen the Starbucks gift card for filling out the survey before leaving, which the events world, and this was going back like 10 years or maybe even more. And I think it's only gotten harder to get people to fill out surveys because every day you're getting asked for like
Right.
review that, like, you can't go to a restaurant without them being like, oh, leave us a 5-star review, leave us. And I get why they're doing it. Like, I don't, I'm not like, angry that they're doing it, like, I get it, but it's like, you're just, like, inundated with, like,
Yes.
"Can you give this feedback? Can you give this?" And it's like, "Well, what's in it for me?" Right? And, like, the gift card's definitely going to help, like, I've not seen a lot of people kind of focused on the research aspect of it, they're just usually so focused on the sales aspect of the trade show.
Yeah. It's something that I'm gonna explore more, but it's been very valuable. It's a lot different than saying, "Hey, do you like our booth?" or, "Hey, what have you heard of us?" Like, this is very neutral. "What do you think of AI in your
Sure.
space right now?" Like, things like
Yeah.
that. So, that's been really beneficial and something that, if you hear more about that, I'd be very interested to see if other folks are doing that with success.
Yeah, for sure. So I know we've talked like a lot about the trade show elements, like the printed materials. Is there anything else, like, as we're kind of coming up to time, that you really want people to think about when they're designing anything, any graphics, any artwork, any concepts for their events? Like, what are you, if nothing else, what do you hope people take away
Right,
from today's
right.
conversation?
Well, yeah, we did cover a lot, and I'm thankful for that. The last thing I would say, and again, this could be a topic for a whole nother show, is on if you're doing a training or some kind of presentation. So there's some things I
Mm,
see that folks, small companies and big companies, seem to struggle with. One is if they're doing a PowerPoint or something, you got to make sure that that PowerPoint, like either you convert it to their specifications or something because the text can change. If you have a text that's a non-standard
yeah,
Microsoft or Apple text, the text will change when you plug it in if you're using their system or not using your computer. Or let's say you're borrowing your coworker's computer or something, and then your whole presentation looks crazy bad. Like it just gets all messed up.
yeah,
So you got to make sure you don't go crazy with fonts. You just stick to basic fonts.
Yeah.
The other big thing I see with presentations is people take forever to get into the meat of it. Like, just get into it. Get into it.
Yes.
Like, 1 minute for housekeeping and get into it. I've seen people
Yeah.
take almost half the presentation just doing introductions and getting into things.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, and I heard this years ago at a webinar, was when you're learning something online, your attention span is only like 5 minutes before you need a break. Like, it's super
Right.
short. So you need to only present a couple slides and then take a break to ask questions or give a funny anecdote or story. But you literally need, if you got a 45-minute presentation, you gotta block that off into, like, 8 chunks, or people
Right.
are gonna lose interest, they're gonna start looking at their phone. Like, it's tough, but that's just how we are psychologically now.
Yeah. Well, and especially when it's virtual because there's so many more distractions and you're not, when I'm sitting in person, people might be a little bit more like, oh, I shouldn't be like scrolling on my phone because it's disturbing the person next to me or it looks bad, right? Whereas at home, you've got the
Mm,
privacy. I think it's also, I've learned that people are either listening to you or reading and they're not doing both, no matter what
yes.
you think they're doing. Like they're only doing one. So if you want them
Yes.
to listen to you, don't put too many words on the slides. Like 20 words or less and get those fonts massive. Like the biggest complaint I hear from events is that people complain that they can't see the slides.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
should they be wearing their glasses? Should they sit closer if they have a yes. But realistically, if it's that important to be on the slide, it's funny because you mentioned like large companies. Some large companies have some of the ugliest slides I've ever
Oh,
seen
yeah.
because they created them in 1982 and that has been the brand template for 40 years, right? Like,
Oh my
it's
god.
it's
I
brutal.
know. And if you're gonna be presenting, then have a slide deck where it's just headlines and visuals, so people aren't reading while you're
Yeah,
talking, or they can't read, or they gotta get up closer. And then if you're gonna share it afterwards and you want to have more information on there, then have another slide deck with your notes. You don't need to put everything on there. It goes back to what we talked
right.
about with the banners and stuff. Like, people cannot read and listen to you at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah. They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it. So, this has been so informative. Thank you so, so much. Where can
Oh.
people find out more about the work you're doing and connect with you if they wanna learn more?
Yeah, again, so my name is Alicia Disantis, and I'm owner of 38th and Kip Studio. So that's 38 and Kip, KIP. I'm all over LinkedIn. You can find me at 38andkip.com. Also on Instagram at 38 and Kip. Again, the 38 and KIP.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a high honor. And
Thank you.
we'll talk to you soon. Bye, Duh.
Bye-bye.